It's not why you do it. Why do you do it? Because it's the right thing to do. It's what you do. And then even if I am mad at somebody, even if I'm pissed off, walking around just, you go over, you scowl at them, and you open the door for them anyway. And even if you have to make your point by slamming the door afterwards, you can still make your point by slamming the door afterwards. But you do the right thing. They're sitting there and, trying to open the jar, and the jar, and you're pissed off. You still walk over and you open the jar. Why? Because you care. Because you understand that the anger and whatever it is that you're feeling is a temporary thing, just like this. It too will pass. And so you do the right thing because you're going to have to answer for those things later on. Because you've already committed that you're there for life. You're there, or at the very least, you're there for the long run. So you do the right thing now because you'll have fewer things to apologize or make up for in the future. Because you know there's going to be a future. Because you've committed yourself to having the future. Like most of what we can say about this one isn't so much in what he's saying, but in the application of it. And so, as we were saying, that love and hate are both emotions. So we tend to think of them as like you either love something or you hate it, as though those are the extremes. If you remember from something I've talked a bunch about, Aristotle's doctrine of the mean, that you have a spectrum. Every virtue is a midpoint between extremes on these opposite ends. And so he doesn't put love and hate as being these opposites of the extreme, but instead love is the virtue. Love is the thing that's in the middle. And if you have too much of it or too little of it, so to have too little of it would be apathy, because it would be the complete absence of an emotion. And then hate would be to have maybe too much of it. But I don't know that we would think of it that way, because I think that we could actually understand it as apathy is its own thing. It's a complete lack of the emotion. In other words, it doesn't even belong on that spectrum, because it doesn't belong to this category of emotions. Because once you're off of this track with a lack of emotion, then there's no bringing it back, really. But remember, love isn't just an emotion, though. Love is actually also a thing that you do. Love is an action. Was it in this class we talked about the different forms of love before? Yeah. It's a really important point. And I mean that. It's a really important thing. In English, we have this one word, which is love. If I were to describe how I feel about, I love buffalo wings. Love buffalo wings. Also love my mom. Do I feel the same way that I felt about my mom as I feel for buffalo wings? No, but we use the same word, which is odd. You might say that you love your mom, but you also love your sister. Hopefully you love your mom and your sister in different ways. You might say that you love your sister and you love your wife. And again, hopefully you love them in different ways, unless you're from Kentucky. So we only have this one word, which is a poverty, because now if we start talking about love, you might hear people say things like, I love them, but I'm not in love with them, if that makes sense. And then we all kind of nod yeah, I kind of think I know what you mean by that, but not necessarily. Now, Spanish doesn't help us a lot more. When we have te quiero and te amo, and what does te quiero mean? I want you, yeah. Literally means I want you. Te amo means something very different, which is what we typically think of as being love. So even though we've got twice as many words for it, we're still at a poverty of what that means. So far, so good. Now, other languages we've got Greek, which gives us way more. Greek gives us this word eros. And it's from that word that we get the word erotic. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily just sexual. It means that you have that infatuation. You've got that that early stage infatuation with a person. You meet them and you think about them a lot, and you have that excited kind of early relationship vibe thing going. But then after a while, let's say you get with the person, it then moves on to something else, which is just philo. And philo is the type of love that you have between friends. And so, like, you've obviously, if you get infatuated with a person, you love them differently. But if you get infatuated with them, hopefully that attraction and that affection becomes this, so that you can actually just watch Netflix. You actually can hang out together. You're not always having to dress up and impress each other. You're kind of, you're not just together, you're also friends. Now, when you have that initial attraction stage and it becomes this, you lose a little bit of this. But you understand that this is a much deeper thing to have. This is a more important thing to have, to be friends with the person that you're with. Now, if you stay together and that deepens even more, you've got this next stage of love, which we call surrogate, which is like a family type of love. You're together, and if somebody invites you, you're also inviting the other person because you guys are together. You could quite literally become family. You get married. You're so close that you finish each other's sandwiches. That's how close you are. Now you understand that when you get to this stage, you've lost a lot of this. This isn't so much there. And this is when people start to complain. They'll say, oh, we've lost that spark. Yeah, because the spark oftentimes comes in this beginning phase. Maybe it's not completely absent, but you do have a lot less of it. You have a little bit less of this friendship thing as well. But it's okay because you realize that this deeper thing, this familial, this family kind of thing, we always talk about family being the most important thing. This is a person now that you're not born into a family with. It's a person you've chosen to be family with. And so you understand that this is a much deeper thing. And so while you can remember these other stages with fondness, you would never give them up because you understand that what you have here is a deeper thing. But there is one more deeper level there, and that's a word called agape. And agape is a type of love that there is no English word for it. There are only English phrases to describe it. This is the word, you guys ever go to a wedding and you read 1 Corinthians 13 when they say, like, love is kind, love is patient, love is long-suffering, love doesn't keep accounts. If you're familiar with that, the word that's being used there in the Greek is this one right here, agape. It's a non-emotional, it's duty-based, it's what you do. So if you have like grandparents, for example, and they've been together for like 150 years, and they seem like they're always arguing or whatever, and then you're like, God, why do you guys stay together? And they go, because that's what you do. This is that final stage of love, and this is what it becomes. As we can see that no greater love does a person have, but that they would give their life for their friends. That's this right here. It's what you do. You commit yourself to it. So now, if you understand this, then you understand that there's this continuation here of love. There's a development of love. So yeah, you meet here, but then if you stay together, God willing, you become this right here, philo. And then you understand that this is a deeper version of what you had before. And then, if you stay together here and you end up becoming family, well, now it's even deeper than before. And you understand that it's this natural progression and that it's good. In other words, you don't lament the loss of what you had before. You celebrate the thing that you have now because you know it's deeper, it's more meaningful, it's more permanent. And then there's nothing more permanent than agape. This is the thing that you do. It's completely selfless. You do it because it's the right thing to do. There's no emotion in this. It doesn't mean like you go through life cold and calculated, but it means that you do the right thing no matter how you feel. In English, we have just the one word, love. And so it doesn't make sense to us how we think like we're going to have all of these things at all of the time. This is a really important lesson about how language can shape your expectations of the world, and how the language that we have access to, the understandings that we have access to, change how our lives turn out. Because if you understand that this is the goal, and that when you get here, you can celebrate this. It's like you won't sit there and go, I don't know, it's like we've lost that spark. I feel like I should, I don't know, maybe we should divorce. That doesn't make any sense. You have this continuation right here. That only makes sense if you think that it's always going to be emotional and exciting. If it is, that's fantastic. And you should aim at that. You should keep elements of all of these things together, of course. But you should also understand that if you've got this Stargate thing going on, that is really, really important and powerful. And that's the something that makes, geez Louise, that's the thing that makes the relationship worth living, of course. But man, if you can approach that agape, man, and like I said, it's such a rare thing for us in Western cultures that we don't even have an understanding of that word. We have no parallel word to that. Now, understand it, man. By the way, is anybody, in this class I was talking about, why is this the shape of a heart? Anybody know why? I think it was this class I talked about it, right? Yeah, it's the silhouette of two people. And we think of it as this being like a completely emotional thing. But love isn't emotional, man. What is love? Well, love is kind. Love is kind. In other words, it's difficult to be kind when these things progress. So, you have to understand that's what love is kind. Love is patient. It's difficult to be patient with people, but you do it. It's a thing that you do. Love doesn't keep accounts of wrongdoings. Love forgives. And at the end of all of it, love prevails. And love can only prevail if it's a thing that you do. And so we should aim at that. We should understand. We should change our understanding to get to the point of knowing that that is the goal. That's the thing that we're shooting for. It isn't this emotional thing. It's nice. It's great. It's fantastic. But it's only the first step to something that's way more powerful and permanent. So, questions? Yeah.
So, are you saying that agape could be related to apathy?
No. Agape is basically the opposite of it. Because apathy would be, you don't really care about anything. You're indifferent to it. Agape is the thing that you do this stuff, regardless of how you feel. Apathy means you have no feelings one way or the other. Like if you're angry with your spouse, like for example, you guys in here, I don't answer this question because if I don't get the answer I want, I'm gonna be very sad today. So don't answer it. Just nod and say yes. You just lie to me. Do you open doors for girls? Thank you. Just nod your heads and say yes. I always think about this when I see two people walking towards the car, and like the guy gets in and then the girl gets it on her side, and I just think like, wow, you don't have a husband or a boyfriend, you have a girlfriend or something, you have friends. You still can't open the door for people, And then people like I've had that before where people have said to me like, I can open my own door. I said, of course you can. I'm not, you're not disabled. Of course. That's not why you do it. Why do you do it? Because it's the right thing to do. It's what you do. And then even if I'm mad at somebody, even if I'm pissed off, walking around just meh, 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 you go over, you scowl at them, and you open the door for them anyway. And even if you have to make your point by slamming the door afterwards, you can still make your point by slamming the door afterwards. But you do the right thing. They're sitting there and trying to open the jar, and the jar, and you're pissed off. You still walk over and you open the jar. Why? Because you care. Because you understand that the anger and whatever it is that you're feeling is a temporary thing, just like this. It too will pass. And so you do the right thing because you're going to have to answer for those things later on because you've already committed that you're there for life. You're there, or at the very least, you're there for the long run. So you do the right thing now because you'll have fewer things to apologize or make up for in the future because you know there's going to be a future because you've committed yourself to having a future. And that's what makes this so powerful. This is a permanent thing. This is a thing that you do. And you think about how it is that we live in our temporary stages here in the world. We're always thinking, if I asked you like what our long-term plans are, how far are our long-term plans really? A week? 2 weeks? In the United States, 4 years is an eternity. Most other cultures don't think of it that way. Most cultures think of things much more long-term than we do. We're always looking for the quick fix, the now, now, now. What's exciting right now? What's new right now? What's appealing to my selfish interests right now? And is there something to be said for that stage? Yeah, of course. It's exciting, it's fun, it's reckless, of course. But if you stay right there, it's bound to self-destruct. And if you do move on though, and you stay right here as friends, then of course things can start to fall apart because you behave differently with your friends than you do with your family. If you move on to that family, we're getting to something permanent now, getting something more permanent now. This is as far as you can go with a person. This part right here, agape, you've got to take yourself there. It's a thing that you do. Hopefully it's a thing that we do together, but at the very least it has to be a thing that you do. Regardless of how the other person is, what if the other person is mad? Okay, you can get mad, but you still do the right thing when you're mad. Why? Because it's the right thing. It doesn't depend on them, it depends on you. You still open the door. Whatever it is that you guys do for each other, whatever it is. But we should open doors. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.